President Biden warned Israel that it risks losing global support if it continues to resist international pressure for a ceasefire. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Netanyahu reminded our president that most Americans stand strong in support of the Jewish state.
Well, as the Islamic holy month of Ramadan approaches, Israel is bracing for increased tensions and more attacks. CBN Middle East correspondent Julie Stahl has more from Jerusalem.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was reportedly surprised by President Biden's comments that he hoped for a ceasefire agreement by next Monday. In a public video, he responded to the president's recent comments.
Since the start of the war, I've been leading a diplomatic campaign to block pressure designed to end the war prematurely and to secure strong support for Israel.
On Late Night with Seth Meyers earlier this week, Biden said a ceasefire is the first step towards a Palestinian state.
And so there's a process underway that I think if we get that temporary ceasefire, we're going to be able to move in a direction where we can change the dynamic and not have a two-state solution immediately, but a process to get to a two-state solution.
Biden also said Israel risks losing global support if it continues to resist international pressure. Netanyahu noted a recent poll that shows most Americans support the Jewish state.
Today, a Harvard CAPS Harris poll was published, which shows that 82% of the American public supports Israel, meaning that 4 out of 5 U.S. citizens support Israel and not Hamas. This will help us continue the campaign until total victory.
Hamas called talk of a ceasefire premature, but the administration continues to express hope for an extended pause in the fighting soon.
That would allow for several weeks, hopefully up to 6, where there would be no fighting, so that we can get all the hostages out, increase the flow of humanitarian assistance, but just as critically, get the fighting stopped so that there's no more civilian casualties and there's no more damage to civilian infrastructure.
Meanwhile, Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant is warning that Hamas, with the backing of Iran and Hezbollah, wants to use the Muslim holy month of Ramadan to incite Muslims in Jerusalem and biblical Judea and Samaria, or the West Bank, towards another attack on Israel.
The central plan of Hamas to take the event called Ramadan, with an emphasis on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, and turn it into the second phase of their plan that began on the 7th of October. This is the central plan of Hamas. This is pumped up by Iran and Hezbollah.
Gallant says it's important to target the terrorists while keeping the Temple Mount open for all Muslims during Ramadan, which begins March 10th and runs through early April. In Gaza, the IDF struck 8 terror targets that launched rockets at the coastal city of Ashkelon last night, while Israeli warplanes struck Hezbollah targets in Lebanon in response to more attacks against northern Israel. Julie Stahl, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Well, this is a time to let your voice be heard because we're in a political season. At the Michigan primary, to get very granular with the results, there was a drive by the Arab community, the Muslim community in Michigan, to vote uncommitted in the Democrat primary. They achieved more than 100,000 votes uncommitted. And they were trying to send a very direct message to President Biden that if he didn't put pressure on Israel for a ceasefire and stop the campaign in Gaza, that they would withhold their vote from him in the upcoming election. If they were to do that, that means he would lose Michigan's 15 electoral votes. That's a big deal in presidential politics, and they're very definitely trying to get the president's attention. For us who support Israel and view that Hamas has overstepped every line here, they have completely violated international law. They are the government of Gaza, and the international pressure should be put on them. Release the hostages, unconditionally surrender, lay down all of your arms, turn Gaza over so that these tunnels, all of this network of rockets and attacks against Israel can be completely dismantled. Until that time, Israel should continue to put the pressure on Gaza. This should continue. We should obviously pray for the protection of innocent civilians. There needs to be a way for them to be evacuated. That pressure should be put on Egypt and Jordan. These things have to happen in the international stage, international community. But most importantly, the pressure has to happen at our own Congress, with your senator, with your Congress representative, your representative for your congressional district, and then at the administration, that America stands with Israel in this. It's a very clear line. What Hamas has done cannot stand. Hamas needs to be eliminated as the government of Gaza.